Frank's Red Hot is the perfect blend of flavor and heat, so you can use an entire bottle to make recipes like buffalo chicken dip or buffalo nachos, or even things that don't start with buffalo. Frank's Red Hot, I put that on everything.
Hey, Craig, it's almost Cougar football Friday?
Friday the 13th.
Right.
That was pretty good. Was
Did you like that?
You practiced that before?
I have children, so it's sometimes you have to give them the little evil laugh and make them laugh.
All right. Well,
I don't know.
welcome.
You've never given B a little evil laugh to make her giggle.
Oh yeah, definitely. And she
right.
emulates it.
Okay.
So she's pretty good at that.
Yeah.
But yeah, this
you
is
go.
Podcast versus Everyone. I'm Craig Powers. With me is Jeff Newser. How you doing, Jeff?
I'm good. I'm actually kind of getting excited that I only have to make it till Friday night before Cougar football. So
that's pretty great. And
I'm like, my week's over half over, right? It's hump day, right?
Yeah. And this
As we record
episode
this
is our Houston preview episode. So no beer up top this time. I'm always drinking, but you'll just have to not know what it is this time.
You like that Sounders chant.
Yeah.
I'm always drinking.
Yeah.
We're always drinking. Yeah.
So, Houston, man.
Yeah. How about that? Okay, so should we be scared, Craig?
Who's afraid of the big bad wolf?
Not me.
I use
don't know
that line
about-
in my
are you?
preview, so
After
I'm
you
just
did all the
recycling
research, are you afraid?
I became significantly less afraid after researching, mainly because they seem to be having a bit of a struggle adapting Dana Holgerson's air raid.
Yeah.
That just seems to be what's going on. Against Houston, when Houston played Oklahoma, they had a little bit better second half, mostly because this Derek King.
I think it's Derek.
Derek. Yeah.
Yeah.
He I kind of started just running a lot more, and Holgerson mentioned that he kind of realized that he should be running more, but at the same time, his King's passing has fallen off significantly from last year, and truthfully has not played that great. I mean, the defenses he plays in the American aren't great, but truthfully, like neither is Oklahoma's.
Right.
They're probably about our level. Or
I mean,
worse,
unless you
maybe.
buy that they have made some massive leap under Grinch. But
Yeah.
even like going from where they were to like a middling defense is a massive leap.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, so unless you think that they went from one of the worst defenses to one of the best, right, with the same personnel, you're looking at Houston kind of doing some underwhelming things against, an Oklahoma defense that even with a large leap is probably only middling, like you said.
Yeah, and truthfully, some underwhelming things against Prairie View A&M as well.
Some very underwhelming things.
Yeah. So far, King is he's hit on like 54% of his passes, and he hit 54.7, and he was in the 65 range last year. Only 5.8 yards per attempt. That includes playing a bad FCS opponent. He gained 8.6 yards an attempt last year. So there's obviously some sort of learning curve, and that's something that I kind of gathered. And then when I was listening to Michael's interview with the Houston podcaster on the Coug Center Hour, he kind of said that they didn't really realize, and we can remember this when Leach came in, we kind of expected this this amazing air raid offense right away.
Right.
And obviously Holgerson's coming in with a lot more talent than Leach did his first season, but WSU came in and they averaged 19 points Leach's first season, and
right,
and we all know that that first BYU game, it was just a miserable struggle, and it was just a miserable struggle pretty much the entire season on offense. Yep. So I think that just because of some of the talent they have on offense. It won't take them as long to get going, and the fact that there's because of Holgerson uses QB runs quite a bit more, that can play to King's strengths. He is a very explosive runner. I've some tape I've seen. He busts some pretty nice runs. So you're not not the speed of like Khalil Tate, but probably he's a better passer. So maybe that's why I'm saying the big bad wolf. And that's what I said in my column is because Coug fans obviously have this fear of the dual threat quarterback.
Right.
So the fact that King is as almost as much of a runner as he is a passer at times. And he's actually been already pretty productive on the ground this year, especially against Oklahoma when they were down. Does that have you afraid? Obviously, because since WSU has, their speed D with they typically are playing as fast as they can. Sometimes they're missing gaps. They've definitely been missing some assignments. And King looks like a guy that can take advantage of that. But does he have you really worried?
I mean, not worried. Here's the thing. Like, we get like this selective memory, right? Where we remember the things that the dual threat quarterback did at some point that, he converted 3rd and 30 or whatever, with a scramble. Like, we remember that stuff, but, sometimes I think, sort of forget, that those guys aren't great at, most of those guys aren't great at both running and passing. And that's certainly the case with King right now, right? Like to have a sub 60%, completion percentage in football today is sort of like eye-popping, right?
And especially given a lot of the, we know, like, because Holgerson is air raid, even though there's a lot of running, there's a lot of short, quick throws, a lot of screens. So you kind of, you
threw
see
a ton of screens against Oklahoma.
Yeah. So you should have a higher percentage, completion percentage, just because of those things.
Yeah.
And that's a big reason why a lot of quarterbacks are 60+% these days, is because there's so many more screens, there's so many more short throws, there's shovel throws, there's those hand. Yeah. I don't know if Holgerson still uses that that we've picked up and occasionally that we used it with Travell Harris last game.
Yeah.
That quick sort of dump throw. That's more like a handoff. But
I mean, our own fans will remember, Luke Falk's, completion percentage going up every year, but
his yards per attempt would actually
the
go down.
danger of the throws was also going down at the same time. So that's why. So so to see a guy who only completed 58% of his passes against Prairie View A&M, that's an FCS school, out of the SWAC, which is not a good FCS conference these days. Like that, his yards per attempt in that game was 5.3, which is really low. So I mean, it just all sort of points to the passing game is sort of a mess right now. Now he is. I watched the Oklahoma game from start to finish last night because I just sort of popped in and out of it because it was at the same time as our first game. So I watched it intently, and he definitely had a few scrambles where I'm like, okay, like some of our fans are going to definitely pull their hair out at some point, probably a couple of times, at least a couple times during the game, because we're going to rush the passer. Nobody's going to be open. He's going to seem hemmed in, and then he's going to pop for like 15 or 20 yards, and people are going to be pissed. They're going to be so like, see, it's the dual threat quarterback. I told you every time. But it's like, I don't know that they're passing. I mean, unless something clicks, but unless something clicks, their passing game is not good enough to truly punish us. Now, their running game, we'll talk about that in a minute. That's definitely the strength of their offense right now. But it's like, I don't know. I mean, unless our secondary is truly horrendous, which, could be, I guess.
Right.
I guess we'll find out. But all signs right now are pointing to this is kind of a passing game in disarray, and this is not a guy who can maybe be the quarterback of our nightmares, on the order of like what, say, Jalen Hurts did to Houston, where he, threw for 300 and rushed for 150 or whatever. Derek King has not shown that so far this year, the ability to do something like that. He'll pop off some runs. I don't know what they did in that second game because I can't find it anywhere to see. But the first game, his runs the first game, I mean, they were, for the vast majority of them, were not designed. Like, they were not using him as a running weapon. So, is he going to do something that's going to make us pull our hair out? Yes, but I don't think it's, right now there's no reason to think that he's dangerous enough to be the sort of Khalil Tate nightmare from a couple of years ago.
Yeah, they do have some talent in the wide receiver. One that was mentioned on Michael's show was Marcus Stevenson.
Yeah, he's legit, man.
Yeah, he's fast.
Yep.
He's he's a big play guy.
That was honestly my biggest takeaway from watching them against Oklahoma, was that he's a legit big play receiver that they have tried to force feed the ball to,
right?
And he is 100%. The one receiver they've got that can really punish us if we're not careful. And I'm sure
it'll happen.
Clays, it'll probably happen at some point. And I'm sure Tracy Clays is well aware of that. So,
well, that's the thing. You can.
He's very good.
You can pick apart well, he's going to do this, he's going to do that. It's like, yeah, these things are going to happen. Stevenson will probably have a chunk play, maybe even a big touchdown. King will probably have some chunk runs.
Yep.
But the thing is, can you manage that enough? Because WSU doesn't need to, and we'll get into the offense in a sec, but we don't need to shut out Houston to win this game. So
right.
And once we talk about the other side of the football, we're gonna start feeling a lot better. You'll be feeling a lot better. But
no doubt.
But yeah, let's talk about the running game. So they've actually their best running back from last year is out with a knee injury. So WC caught a bit of a break there. But he's been out all season. It was an injury in the off season, but that was Patrick Carr. But so their top guy. Their top guy in yardage is Kyle Porter. He's a little under 5 yards a carry, and one score. King seems to be. He and King are the they're going to be the guys running the ball,
right?
But 33 times in 2 games is quite a lot, obviously. Considering they've only thrown 53 passes in 2 games.
Yeah, that was when I was looking at King's stats. I was like, geez, that's like,
And you're like, air raid?
Yeah, and you wrote about this. They're definitely a very different branch of the air raid. They are a running. Holgerson is a running offense with air raid passing principles,
right?
Basically,
RPO.
Yeah.
So the RPO it will be in there. He was kind of one of the first to adopt that, and he's very innovative. But I don't think he's in a position to be innovative at the moment because he's installing his offense. So that's it may look different when we play them when they return to Pullman, but right now they literally look like they're trying to pick it up, and that's the thing. Is I think I'm feeling like they'll look a little bit better each week. So
sure.
So I feel like they'll look better against us than they did against Oklahoma. And to true, they did score 31 against Oklahoma. A lot of it was garbage time, but
yeah.
But they sustained drives. They weren't they basically were they only averaged I think a pretty low yards per play against Oklahoma.
Yeah, they had a lot of in the first half it was a lot of 0-yard plays, a lot of negative yard plays. They were able to pop some stuff in the second half. So and they had some drives where they again, picked out some 10 to 15 yard plays to kind of get down the field
and
pretty quick.
They finished their red zone
opportunities,
which is I think it's going to be a huge part of this game.
Well, they got a massive bump in that first game from a running back that I don't think you wrote about, but Mulba Carr.
Oh yeah, he didn't play in the second game.
He didn't play in the second game, so I was just
and I couldn't find. I didn't write about him because I couldn't find much about why he didn't play.
So I just found that. It was kind of buried in something. So Holgerson's considering redshirting him.
Oh.
He's a senior. He's considering redshirting him for the following year. So
yeah, that makes sense because he actually got 7 carries.
He was quite good in that
60
first
some yards.
He got actually 9 carries for 76 yards, and he was pounding. He's a physical kind of straight ahead runner. He was pounding Oklahoma pretty good. So they held him out of the second game. My guess would be
he might play this game.
This would be a game we'll see him. So you'll probably see both him and Porter trying to lead that rushing attack. And especially, I mean, look, we've talked about the rushing defense. That's been a topic of conversation. I'm sure Holgerson's going to try to figure out a way to probe and pound that running defense in a way that, maybe they didn't in the first couple of games. And, their second game, I don't know what to make of that game against Prairie View. Like they got out to such a big lead right away.
It was
and
like
then
24-0 or something.
And then the second half was such a turd fest. Like it was, I mean, they were like 3 and out like 4 times or something like that.
We've seen that before. We know that game.
Yeah, it was crazy. Like their final 7 drives, as near as I could tell, King was in for 5 of them, and I think they maybe had like 1 first down or 2 first downs, something like that. I mean, it wasn't very many. And then Logan Holgerson finished off the last couple drives. But yeah, so I don't know, without being able to see it, I don't know if they were trying to, work on stuff. I mean, Prairie View was, I'm guessing was they just were never going to be a threat in the game. So, it's tough to say. It's really tough to say what it is that, you take away from that.
Yeah. And I think to kind of wrap up the offense here is just, we're not like I think we've like kind of maybe undersold them a little bit so far. They're still a good offense. They've had a rough start, but I think there's the potential for explosion and big play and potential for a good offense is in there. And so they're gonna put up points on WSU's defense.
But what do you think is the upper end of that range? Like if you were to say a likely, maybe not the likeliest scenario, but if you were like, yeah, they're capable of X number of points.
Yeah.
Like what would you say?
Probably, I'll go 38.
Yeah, so like that's kind of what I'm thinking, right? Like upper 30s is sort of the upper end, and I'm thinking it's maybe more like 28, 30, 31, 24,
that's what I was
like somewhere
thinking,
in there. Like I'm thinking the likely range is like 27 to 31 or something, So I'm like, okay, so like that's your likely range, and now we're gonna, obviously talk about the defense, but it's like, yeah, if their likely range is 30-ish, you feel pretty good about that. It's obviously different from the first 2 teams we played. You're not going to shut them out. Okay.
Yeah. This is definitely going to be a bigger test for the defense for sure. Like just because the level of athletes, like, I mean, New Mexico State had probably a guy at running back that's better than as a guy at Houston has, honestly. Huntley was a pretty damn good running back.
Yeah.
More explosive at least. But there's going to be obviously better athletes across the board, especially at wide receiver, especially at quarterback. So you're going to have to deal with stuff. And obviously we have a lot of questions. I do think that, I would assume that the coaches kind of were looking ahead to this game a little bit too.
Yeah, I think that's a fair assumption.
And they've been planning for Holgerson's offense and whatever they're expecting from that. They've been planning for De'Aaron King as much as they can, and knowing that they probably were going to get by on these first 2 games. I think we'll see less players play. We're not going to be rotating out the defense as much. So it'll be interesting to see if I do expect a little bit. Like I expect improvement from Houston on offense. I expect a little bit of improvement on our end on defense. And I was listening to the Coug Talk WSU football blog podcast today, and Sean made a good point that Tracy Claeys is pretty damn good at adjusting in game.
Yep.
So and both of them, him and Sutra, both were talking about how they're gonna and they're if we could see maybe Houston come out in the first half, but then the second half it could slow down, and that's been my feeling of this game. I know you even said that in our season preview. That this could be a game where it's close and then WC pulls away late. But that's my feeling on offense, on their offense versus our defense. I think they could come out and we might struggle early, but I think you'll see a lot of bending, and potentially not breaking early. And it may come down to how well Houston is executing in the red zone early in the game, while they have the chance to jump on us. And then if you look and you see us making some stops early, I would feel pretty damn good about how this game's going to go.
And they don't have waves of athletes that they send at you like say we do. Like it's not.
Yeah, they don't have like 12 deep at receiver.
Yeah, they don't have that. Stevenson is really good. King is obviously a real threat with his legs. Porter is pretty good. Carr looked really good against Oklahoma, but not really special, just sort of tough, like a tough physical runner. I think it's going to be more about how does Holgorsen sort of scheme up getting the ball to his playmakers in some space early. And then how does Claeys adjust to taking away those things that Holgorsen's trying to do? And then does Holgorsen have a counter for that? And I suspect that Holgorsen won't actually have a counter for that. I suspect that, he's a really brilliant offensive mind, but I just don't think their weapons are as varied or as deep as maybe our fans are imagining them to be. Now I could end up looking like a total moron. So,
well, yeah. And I think it seems like he's they're at a point right now where they're just figuring out the offense, and he's figuring out what to do with his players.
Yeah.
And so it's just they're still at a state of flux. That being said, I still expect them to score like 4 touchdowns, and whatever field goals or whatever.
Sure.
So I still think this is going to be a high, a relatively high scoring game for them. I just don't think it's going to be like this is not going to be like 60 to 59 type stuff here.
No, I don't think so.
I do think they will, because of their running, will limit the number of possessions for our offense. So even if our offense,
presuming we're not allowing 10 to 15 yard runs,
presuming that they're more of the 5 to 6 yard variety and not the 20 yard variety, which that we very well could be. Although Phelps said that we haven't seen Lamont McDougall's best game yet, and I'm like, yes, we have, because there's been 2. One of them has been his best, and that would obviously be.
I don't think that's what he meant. Craig.
Yeah, I know that's what he meant. I know he's still improving, but I do think he's kind of nodding to the fact that he's going to play a lot more.
Yeah.
Which is good. I mean, he played a lot more.
Well, and hopefully he's super fired up to play against his former coach. So.
Oh yeah.
How about that connection?
Yeah.
He's going to prove Dana Holgorsen wrong.
Yeah.
Never believed in him.
Never believed in him. Played as a freshman.
All he did was recruit him and play him as a freshman.
I don't know. We don't know what happened.
I'll show you.
We don't know what happened there.
Yeah, we don't.
But yeah, so let's take a break and then let's get into the offense.
And we're back.
All right. So this is the fun part.
Yeah.
When the Cougs have the ball.
Our Cougs, not the Cougs.
Oh, yeah.
The Cougs.
The Cougs. Go Cougs.
That's right.
Cougs.
That's
So
right.
do you think if they had the same cheer, do they go?
COOGS.
Do they spell it different at the end? Like
I don't know.
COOGS.
Well, like we've written about now how, and so it's kind of made its way around now that like they are the Cougars because we were the Cougars, and so like okay, but it's like what I'm really interested in is how did they end up on COOGS?
I mean,
how did this happen?
I've
not seen that explanation.
They probably were like, WSU is already doing that, and so I respect it.
Maybe
BYU just straight up, was like go Cougs, the exact same thing, and they pretty much hijacked it from us on Twitter at least.
Whatever.
They're definitely stronger on Twitter with it.
There's more of them than us.
Yeah, there are. But yeah,
they've got a whole world of like followers to play off of.
Exactly.
So,
But yeah, this is the Go Cougs COGS.
That's right. And we should be spelling it out a whole lot.
Yeah.
In the game, if we're singing the fight song at home.
UGS, go Cougs.
Right.
Which of course we always do every time. Come on, everyone does that.
Everybody does.
You have to teach your kids.
That's right.
But anyway, so yeah, Houston's defense not very good.
Not very good at all.
I'm really looking at those Oklahoma numbers, man. And let's just preface this: Oklahoma is the best offense in the country, and Oklahoma is like 1, and then 2 is pretty far down. So like Oklahoma is one of the greatest offenses of all time.
Right.
Under Lincoln Riley now.
This iteration.
Yeah. And so we shouldn't, expect to shred them quite the same way. However, they Sooners averaged almost 14 yards a pass against Houston.
Oklahoma had over 300 yards passing and 300 yards rushing in 61 plays.
61 plays.
That's bananas.
Oklahoma did more against the Sooners than we tore them apart more than we did against Northern Colorado. So, but anyway, so we're not that good on that. No. But however, Oklahoma's number 1 SP plus offense. We are number 12. So, and I didn't need to quote that stat to tell you that this offense is good, of course.
No, Craig, I demand evidence.
Yeah.
I've not seen enough evidence yet. I must have an objective statistic to tell me.
Yes, thank you. But yeah, so, and to other side of the coin, Houston's defense is rated 99. So, which is roughly where they were last year.
Yeah.
And I don't expect them to be much better than last year. I just, I think Gordon's going to find open dudes. Like our receivers are too good. And there may be slightly more pressure, but I still think the offensive line is good enough to hold up. The only like Oklahoma, like Jalen Hurts wasn't pressured much at all. But Prairie View, the sacks they have on the season were against Prairie View now.
Yeah.
And usually where usually where an FCS, like a bad FCS can be dominated by a middling FBS is on defense because that's they have the athletes on defense can sort of react and whatever, but so and those front lines and stuff. Of course, maybe that can make you worry about WSU's front line, but whatever.
Sure.
But I think WSU's offensive line has been fantastic so far against not good defenses. This is a slightly better defense, but it's still not good. It's the type of defense that the Cougs the Cougs probably won't face a worse defense the rest of the year. Maybe UCLA, I don't know, but not even UCLA. I don't like.
Yeah, UCLA's defense isn't terrible.
Yeah, but I don't think they're going to face a worse defense, or maybe Oregon State actually.
Maybe.
We'll say Oregon
that's
State.
A possibility.
Yeah, that was so far down the schedule.
Yeah.
But yeah, so this is roughly on the level of Oregon State. They scored 58 points on Oregon State last year. and a lot of it came in the second half when they kind of pulled away. And I kind of, I want them to come out quick and just like put it on them right away and just put a ton of pressure on Holgerson's offense. But I do see, like, even if it doesn't start out well, it's gonna have like this is gonna, like, maybe Gordon might have, I don't even know. Like, I don't even know if this guy can get nervous. He did seem to be impacted by throwing a pick a little bit last week.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. Like, maybe he won't get nervous. Maybe he'll be excited. But I do think maybe overly excited. But I don't think
it's going to be interesting.
They're playing in an NFL stadium, which I think a lot of players will be excited about.
Yeah,
but
it could also be a little sterile because it's, I don't know how well they're going to travel off campus to that game. Like, I legitimately have no idea.
Yeah, I'm
how
thinking
many
it's going to be a
Houston fans are
half
gonna show up,
empty stadium.
Plus, I believe that their stadium, their campus stadium, I think is maybe a bit bigger than ours. I don't think it's a huge stadium.
I think it's roughly the same size. I think it's in the 30s.
Yeah. And so then you're going to go to a 70,000 seat NFL stadium, indoors, not on your campus, etc. I don't know how many fans we have traveling. I sort of looked at it like, I don't think Houston's a place I really am dying to go visit in September.
You can get on StubHub some like $17, $18 tickets.
I'm like, I'm not dying to visit that place in September. So, you
can get a $45 ticket on like the 40-yard line.
Yeah.
Right now. So
yeah.
There's a lot of tickets on StubHub. I haven't heard anything about it selling out or anything, but
Gordon didn't seem too amped up in the first game, and if he wasn't too amped up in the first game, I doubt he'll be too amped up in this game.
But yeah, and we just have we're going to repeat this over and over again this year. But it's going to be waves and waves of
dudes.
Really good wide receivers.
Like serious dudes.
Yeah, like it's
over and over again.
Yeah, it's like when you have all those dudes like just crushing it, and then Brandon Arconato comes up and has like 120 plus yard receiving game. It's like, I don't know, man. Like,
well, I'll say the thing that I saw from Houston's defense against Oklahoma, where when I watched their offense, I went, okay, like King with his legs, he's not throwing the ball well, but with his legs, when he gets loose, like he's legit. Stevenson, the receiver, when he got the ball in his hands, I'm like, okay, that dude's legit. Like he can play. The other receivers, I was like, yeah, they're good, but like they weren't like world beaters. Like Stevenson was kind of a difference maker. The other guys were just like, good receivers, which, in the American Athletic Conference, I'm sure plays very, very well. Right. When I watched their defense, I went, they have a decided lack of dudes on defense. Like I just, they were just sort of hopeless. And again, it's Oklahoma. That's the caveat, but it's like, they were sort of pretty hopeless and hapless. And it wasn't even, it didn't look like they were clueless. It just looked like they just had no prayer of matching up is what it looked like. They were just kind of one step slow all over the place. So again, didn't see the second game. I do know that they gave up 250 yards passing on only 15 completions. Now It took 38 attempts to get there, but if you're, if your yards per completion is that high, that sort of suggests that, maybe they were taken advantage of from time to time with some explosive plays. So yeah, I don't know. I did not see guys on that defense that had much of a shot of holding us down for very long.
Yeah, so that's what I gathered. I think Borgie will find space as well when he needs it, and but honestly, like they might not be tempted to run all that often.
Yeah.
Or they might be because, Houston might be dropping guys and there might be the space for it, which fine, let Borgie run wild, whatever.
Yeah.
But hopefully, this might be be able to see is Gordon the type to check down to the run, or is he the guy who's going to play some hero ball and think he's going to, complete that pass against that 8-man whatever. But, so that'll be interesting to watch. I think the offense is going to crush it.
Yeah, I think so.
They've had 4 total non-kneel drives that haven't scored on this year out of 26, something like that. I think it's going to be pretty similar to that. Like I can see them scoring on. I think there's going to be less drives. Maybe I think they had like 14 against Northern Colorado, 14 or 15. I think it'll be more like 12 or 11 for this one.
Yeah.
So if they score on like 9 of those, I mean that's field goals and touchdowns, which
I mean, it really just depends on how much we allow them to run.
Yep.
If we allow them to run and control the clock, and they're constantly picking up 5-6 yards a run, then it's gonna hold down the possessions, and the score is gonna be suppressed a little bit. So ultimately, I think it comes down to how well our defense performs against their rushing attack. I'm less concerned about the big running plays from King when he gets loose, just because those are going to happen, and it's whatever. To me, it's more the first and second down. Are we giving up 6, 7, 8 yards on first and second down to those guys? So if so, then that'll keep our offense off the field. And I got to imagine that's going to be their offense's goal, is to try and help their defense by controlling the clock. So.
Yeah, I think so. That's probably against such a good offense, and then, that's not exactly how they started against Oklahoma. But I think
no, it's not.
From what I've read, Holgorsen kind of may have learned something from that game. So I think you'll see them more designed runs for King and more runs in general. Yeah, in this, especially after he watched the tape against. Northern Colorado, and so, especially early, our defense was giving up some chunk runs. So
and this will probably be another one of those games where the defense goes, they were doing stuff that we didn't see on film. You're probably going to see a lot of that from Holgorsen. He's going to scheme some stuff up, because that's what he does. Yeah,
he's very good, and that's why I know they're still going to score points, even though they've struggled. But I think that they're gonna score points on us, but I think that we're gonna score a lot of points on them.
Yep.
So overall, I'm feeling truthfully a lot better about this game than I was before I started digging in. Which then the more I think about that, the more I worry about maybe I'm a little overconfident. So I don't know, man. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, if it were me, I'd be like, if I were gambling, right? So I think the line is, generally around a touchdown, might be a little more at this point. If I were gambling, I would say the Cougs probably cover, and I think actually it probably goes the under. I think the number is like 75 or something.
74.5 is what I saw. But,
so I think
but probably I bet like your general person will bet the over. But
yeah, I mean if the game is say 42-28, that's still under. So that's kind of where I'm leaning, is a score kind of like that, 42-28, 45-28, 45-30, which again is, now we're getting up at that number, but that's kind of what I'm thinking, somewhere in there.
Yeah. So is that your predict? You want to do a hard and fast prediction?
Yeah. So let's go 42-27, 42-27.
Nice. I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go 42-31.
Yeah.
WSU. Go Cougs. Cougs.
Yeah, I could see that.
All right, man.
Yeah, there we go.
I'm excited for this. It's nice to have a game that isn't assuredly a walkover to talk about.
Yeah. But a game they should win.
I think I put it in the Slack when I started writing my preview. I was like, I'm gonna be mad if we lose to this team now, and so
Yeah.
I'll be mad if we lose to this team.
If we lose this game, I have a feeling we're gonna look back at it the way we look back at USC last year, where it's like,
we should have won that game.
Should not have lost that game. That does not look like a good loss now. I have a feeling it's gonna. It will haunt us probably to some degree if we don't figure out a way to win this game. So,
yeah. So win the damn game.
That's right. Win the day for Crimson and Gray.
Best in the West.
Yeah.
Best with the Cougs name.
That's right. Like the true Cougs.
The true Cougs.
The
Not
original
the copy
Cougs. That's right. Copy Cougs.
Copy Cougs.
Oh, we should hashtag that tomorrow. Or
Ooh.
on Friday. Copy
All right.
Cougs.
Hashtag Copy Cougs. Start it
There
up,
we go.
everyone.
There it is. All right, man.
All right, man. Let's do this thing, Cougs, and we'll be back on Monday morning to talk all about it.
Hopefully a win.
Hopefully a win.
Go Cougs.
Go Cougs.